Hello and welcome. How is everybody? Carol, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So our first thing is to make sure that actually our tech is actually working this time. It looks like I'm not muted at all. I can see two people on the screen, my end. So if anyone is watching, Emily, if you're there, I think you're going to be watching today. Just let us know in the comments if that is actually the case, and we'll just keep chatting as we go. And yay, there we are. I can see us both on screen. If you can do that. Yay, I can see and hear you both. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate that very much. Lovely. Brilliant. There we are. Excellent stuff.
Good.
Fantastic. So, where should we start? Let's start with some of the things that we know we're definitely going to cover. One is to make sure, and Emily mentioned this before, is kind of our, I want to say well-being in terms of COVID-19, but it's more about the fact that we've gone from being completely self-isolated to actually now needing to go back into schools and feel that we've done everything we can, but also I think not to get oversensitive to it. I think we do all the preparation we can. We do all of the things that we need to do to be able to make sure that we're safe, but then get back into that, we are teaching, we are doing everything we can. It's about making sure the kids get what they need with all of the restrictions that may or may not actually be in case. So I think that's going to be really, really important. We're also going to cover cups, which is
We are.
I think is really exciting, and also because it's going to be a sense of what we need to be able to do is to obviously react to whatever the situation is. And I know cups have been popular in many groups that I've been part of in terms of easy to use, cheap to get together, easily put in a dishwasher, all of those sorts of things, even if you're within bubbles and all of that, all those extra things that we can think about are going to do. And Carol has already got a PDF that we can do, and we're going to have a video for that, and so that's going to be fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how all that goes. And what else did you want to make sure we covered today, Carol?
Oh, tabletop dancing along with cups, It's not actually about dancing on a table. It's about, I discovered this thing on BBC, 10 Pieces at Home, about using hand gestures while sitting at the table along with a piece of music. And I've developed it from what BBC have done. And I'm really enjoying it. So, and BandLab is the other thing for me to talk about as well today. So I thought pretty much I would cover how to do music when you haven't got anything. Supposing we're not allowed to sing, supposing we're not allowed to use instruments, supposing it's pouring down outside as well, and we can't go out. So we know how to do music when we can sing, when we can go outside, and when we can use instruments. So how about we cover what to do when you have nothing and you're just, whoa.
Good idea, because I think that there's an awful lot in the minute about we're going to go back and it's all going to be fine, and then you sort of see that, and we're going to be doing this outside, and we're going to be doing this like this and this like that, which of course we know in reality is, let's have all the doors open for ventilation, okay, except the people next door are still trying to do their normal subjects, which means that we're making too much noise, or it's absolutely hammering down with rain, or like today it's like 0 force 10 gales going on and all of that. So it's like, that's quite good in theory, but in reality it's not necessarily as straightforward. And I think, like you say, having these things up our sleeves that we can just do if we need to on any given day, and also that it's got a little bit of structure and a little bit of longevity as well, which I think is going to be the thing. So okay, we need to be able to do this, and then we can actually put those things together. You put a great post in the other day about your screen that you've got there in your home studio. So it'd be quite good probably to be able to sort of do that kind of, just explain a little bit about where you got it for, just in case people haven't been in the group already, they can scroll down and see, but just a little bit about how that's going to work. And the other thing I just want to make sure that we cover as well before we finish is a little bit about, for those of you in the group, what it is that we can do for you. We're sort of setting ourselves up for the next academic year. Is there anything that we can do that would be supportive? Things like, do you want us on on a monthly basis necessarily to go through the stuff actually that's in the membership. Cover some of the singing things, even if it's things you're not able to do at the moment. The boomwhacker stuff, the recorder stuff. Actually, have that as something we can go through on a live video, or be able to point you in that direction, so that you're regularly covering things which you do already have access to, but maybe you're not making the most of because it's not on your framework just at the moment. I think if anything like that you think would be helpful. I know before I mentioned about lesson plans as well. We have got lesson plans within the membership, but having a lesson for every class for every month or every week of the year would be fantastic, but that comes with an awful lot of work. So it's not something that we want to be able to do just because it's something there, because there are things out there like Charanga that do lesson plans for absolutely everything and all of that. We're not trying to be Charanga, we're trying to be ourselves and do our own thing. But at the same time, if there are certain things that you think would be helpful and supportive, then we can start to put that in the mix and make it more like that. The whole point of it being a membership is that we're able to be adaptive and creative for what it is that you need. So we need that kind of two-way street, really, I think, and that can really help and support us all. So why don't we start with the nuts and bolts of the things that you've bought for your practice room, Carol, because I think that would be helpful, just in terms of, we're going to go back into our class in whichever form that is. What are the things that we need to be aware of that I think most people might have covered, but just in terms of, let's just think about these things and have them as like an easy bullet point.
Mm-hmm. So if you're coming into a studio like mine, we need to wash our hands at the door. Children are not using the bathroom anymore. I need them changed out of their school clothes by the time they come into my house. So that's my 4 o'clock slot gone. But once they get into my music room, in fact, it's a bit of a mess in here today because I'm stripping all the furniture out to try and give us the biggest space we possibly can. Even though it's only bookcases against the wall, they still take up a little bit of space. And my plan then is to turn my piano so it's next to my desk. My desk's here. My piano's currently over there. It's going to turn, and then it gives me about this much space between the piano and the desk, and I'm going to screen from the middle all the way down to the door, where you can see there. And then basically my room will be in the two halves. So I bought those screens actually from, it's called Instant Print. It wasn't a PPE company. It was a photo company. I could have my logo on and all sorts of things printed on it. And they were just transparent roller banners. So literally pulls up, has a stick in the back, and it just stands up. Which the handy thing is, when I roll it back down again, it takes only this amount of space. It's really light and goes in a bag, so I can take it into school with me as well. I can take them in it, and I can move them around the room if I need to create more of a booth or whatever. You could get them in either 80 centimetre width or a metre width. So I just went for it and bought a couple of the metre ones. And they were £40 each with a little discount for buying multiple as well. So I've basically done the room for 80 quid, which wow. I think is, pretty good. And they came the very next day. So, they were a little bit tall for me. They're 2 metres high. And I was wrestling with this sail at one point. But the pole that it comes into 3, and it's got a bungee cord, so avoid the bungee cord. But we were able to just chop just a little bit off. So, it was about 20 centimetres we chopped off the top, which is still plenty tall enough for this room. And a lot easier for me to be able to put up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a little bit like, when I saw that you'd done it, I thought it's a little bit like having your own music system and having your own, I don't know, stuff that you take around school. I know it's an extra something, but it means that you're a little bit more self-sufficient. You can set yourself up in your home studio, but like I say, if you're taking it into school, if you really need something, I've got one in the car, or I've got that. Yeah. It's just that, because there's so much going to be going on. So many people that have so many things they need to be thinking about, and actually just being able to do that, I think is really useful if you're in a position to do it, obviously.
Yeah, and I think if you take it into school with you, if you need that, it gives you that shield between you and the children if you need it. I don't know what we're going to need. We've not been in, we've not done this yet, but I think it's just handy to have it around.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fairly thick as well. I didn't get the feeling it was going to rip easily, which is good, but I also got the feeling that if I did tear it, I'd be able to just tape it back together again. So, I'm ever so happy with them.
Great. And like I say, I think most schools will have hand sanitizer. Obviously, if you're at home, you're going to have all of those things. Yeah, you're going to have your social distancing in place. And I think the other thing to be really aware of is the fact that everybody's going to be much more socially aware than they were before. If you think about the reality of all the coughs and splutterings and things that were happening after Christmas, which was just the norm because that's what normally happens. Now everybody is very aware that all of that is a big thing, and everything is much more sanitary, and actually we're in a much safer position than we were before, because the other thing to remember, of course, is that everyone who's in school, as far as we know, is going to be well, and they're not going to have COVID-19 because most people don't. And so I think from a sort of a well-being point of view, it's really important just to remember that, yes, we have to be careful. Yes, we need to be really safe and we need to be on what we're doing. But beyond that, actually just think about it logically and actually know that the reality is that everybody's well, everyone's healthy. If they're not, they're going to be in school. If you're not sure in any shape or form, then you have that decision to be able to make, to either remove yourself or the children, or to make it safe, or whatever that you need to do within the safeguarding that happens in your environment. You'll know what those are. And I think it really is a little bit sort of mind over matter from that sense. Let's be safe, let's get back to it, but actually let's get on with the teaching in the way that we can, and that is going to look different, as we know. But within that, let's do it. And I think what we've learned over these last few weeks and months in terms of how we teach, I think having been online teaching is going to be really helpful, because I'm not personally going to be able to go and demonstrate something right next door to somebody, because I'm going to need to socially distance, but I've been doing it remotely. So actually I'm used to being able to do that, but we're still going to be in the same room now. So that's going to mean there is that kind of personal interaction that can happen, even if it is sort of 2, 3, 4 meters apart, or whatever it happens to be, depending on the size of your room. So I think a lot of the skills that we've been learning and we've been doing already will come into play and actually make it maybe not quite as tricky as we think. And the thing about teachers is that everyone's really adaptable really quickly, and so that's really, really, really important to remember. So anything you want to add on that front in terms of sort of generally keeping on top of our well-being and what we want to be able to do for ourselves?
Yeah, I was just thinking the other thing to add to that is risk assessments. I know we've been full of that for the last
absolutely.
couple of days, haven't we? And I do have a risk assessment there. There are risk assessments that have come out from all over the place. Every governing body to do with music has put one out there. But I've written one that's good enough for the schools, and it's good enough for my insurance as well. And the insurance companies are saying, as long as you've got a risk assessment in place and you are sticking to it, it's a reasonable risk assessment, you're fine. It's just do not go out of your way to upset people. That's basically all it said on that, in order for your insurance to count. So, I have no problem with, posting it if anybody wants this risk assessment, just if you just want to even look at it, just to see if it suits you. It is a watered down version of some of the official ones I've seen, and I know you've seen it, Mark, as well. It gets the job done, but there's no bells and whistles on it. It literally says we're all going to wash our hands, and we're spacing out, and we're ventilating the rooms. What have you? Which I believe is all, and I've had it approved as well. So I believe that's all we need to have in place.
Yeah, and I think from a school point of view, but also from a parental point of view, people assume that this is all taking place now because everyone's aware of it, but just to be able to say, look, I've got one if you'd like to see it, or we've thought about this and this is how it's going to work. And I think even in that kind of introductory conversation again, or that email you're going to send out, or whatever it is that you're going to do in your situation, this is how it's going to work and why it's going to work, and everyone goes, great, okay, so it's all under control, should all be fine. And like we said, if you're in someone else's situation, like in a school, then it's all taken care of anyway. You just need to make sure that you've got your part of it actually all working.
And yours tallies.
Exactly. And Emily, if you're still live and still watching live, do put in the comments, just let us know from your perspective, because of course you've got younger children that you're involved in. Are you still going to be doing all your stuff online? Are you going to be meeting up in some form or another? Do just put in there exactly what you're planning on doing and how that might be working for you. So take us into the world of cups, Carol, because I know this is something you were sort of doing before all of this kicked off, but it's actually something which I think, as I said, is going to be really, really helpful for many people and very user friendly once you've got your handle on it.
Yeah, so I basically use these. These were, I think they were £1 for 20. So they're disposable as well, but we don't just dispose them. I mean, that would be horrendous, wouldn't it, every time you do a class? But obviously that's very inexpensive for you to have for your class named for the child, however your school says. The school I'm going into, we're in bubbles, so 30 of these to remain in the classroom is fine, as far as my head teacher has said. And so the way you play a rhythm cup is you go like this, you tap it, and you tap it. Job done. That's quite easy.
So you're tapping it on the table, and then you're tapping the sealed end.
Yeah, and I can roll it on the table as well. That's a nice sound. Well, that's next. So I was doing this as a little standalone introduction to a term, just as a little bit of fun. But it's turned out that it's really got legs, hasn't it? So I've sent you along my PowerPoint just today, haven't I, Mark? Because I had to kind of tidy it up a little bit because it's one I've been using. And I've just printed a couple of sheets off. And if I just hold one up. So I devised this system. I probably didn't devise it. I probably found it somewhere, you know. But I devised this system where if we had the purple cup, and if you can see that, this is a picture of a purple cup with a line underneath it. That means table. And if you've got the little blue one has got a little hand above it. I know from a distance it looks like a helicopter, and that means tap the top. So basically, this piece of music goes tap, tap, then a down, up, down, up. That's what it did. And there's full instructions of actually how that works on the PowerPoint. That is super, super easy. So I was teaching it without the music notes, so literally just pictures, so graphically, and then I introduced crotchets and minims, followed by quavers after that. And on each sheet of my PowerPoint, it just gets a little bit more complicated. And the one on the bottom, we're probably not going to do this one at the moment, but I'm leaving it on there in the PowerPoint. This, when you finish, you pass the cup to your partner and you trade cups. Guess why we're not doing that at the moment? But you know, and you can have the whole table actually passing around and what have you. So that's the premise of it. I was also using it previously to introduce children to note lengths and the recorder music that we were going to use. And as you know, the recorder music I use is Sarah Watt's Razzmatazz. It has the best 1 minute long little backing tracks. So we performed that with our cups to the backing tracks that next week we're going to learn to play on the recorder. I'm basically cutting out the next week we're going to play that on the recorder section of that. And so you can get little backing tracks all over the place. You know, if you've got any tutor book for any instrument that comes with a CD, it's going to have backing tracks with it, isn't it? Just use those little snippets of music, as long as they're in 4/time generally. I've written everything in 4/time. Let's make it easy. We've written it all out in 4/time. Diddy little piece of music, away you go. And the composition for this is just, well, it just goes on forever. You just get the children with their whiteboards and say, okay, make up your own rhythm. Your choice is tap, tap, or swirl for a long one. Off you go. And you know, and come up with it, and it sounds absolutely great in the room when they're all playing as well. So yeah, so that's Rhythm Cups. Rhythm Cups Light. It's very, very simple. It was just meant to get you started on it. And then I know there's loads of YouTube videos on Rhythm Cups as well, isn't it? You want something a bit more complicated, go for it. But this will give you a scheme just to get you through that first little bit. Use it as a filler, or you know, it could be the main part of your lesson, but I would just use it as a filler to get you over. I can't sing, I can't go outside, I can't use any loud instruments. So you know, the percussion trolley is closed. So yeah, so that's how I was using that. Do you have any questions about my Rhythm Cups, Mark?
Well, Emily just put in the comments that she's used your Rhythm Cup PowerPoints and it worked really well, and she highly recommends it. And but she did say the passing the cups was chaos, I think is the word that she said. But they had a lot of fun and a good giggle. But there in itself, you may not be able to do that now, but actually, I mean, you probably can do that now if you're in a bubble. But you know, assuming you decide not to, you know, it's like say there's those things that are going on. And I think the other... Go on, carry on, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the first week we'll all be sat with our own cup in our own, you know, little bubble within a bubble.
Yeah.
And then week 2 we'll be passing them backwards and forwards. Once we've got a feel for how this is going,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
So we're gonna put that PowerPoint into the membership, and I'll put a link obviously here in the group as well. And Carol, you're going to do a video of it as well, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm going to do a video. I just need the teenage person to be up at the same time as I am, so that we can do the passing of the cups. And once the teenage person is up, then then we can do that video.
And it's interesting that this, it's the things that we took for granted before, because I know I can't just pop round and we can just do it, because we're obviously still not meant to be doing this and that and sharing and all the rest of it, and it is those kind of things where, we'll just do a video, that'll be fine, we'll do one tomorrow or whatever. It's not quite as straightforward as that now, so we've got other people to do as well. But I think it'll be fantastic once that's in. And as I said, I might just put the PowerPoint in anyway, because we've got that already, and then you can use it if you need to use it. But then the video, I think, will be then supportive to sort of see how all those things go in. And one of the things, that's what I was trying to remember what to say, is the fact that if you're going to use it as a composition, or you're going to use it to play along to something, or you're going to do it in groups, just remember to take all the options away. So say to the people in the class, okay, you can do one like this, or two like this, or do it, and just take all those things away. So you're going to tap however many times, you're going to swirl however many times, you've got 10 that you're going to create, put it in however you're going to do it, and then that sort of makes it much easier, doesn't it? Rather than we talk about this on our composition workshop in terms of making it straightforward and easier for people to understand, rather than that kind of go away and compose, which is obviously really, really hard to do.
Yeah, it's given it that structure. We're going to compose a piece of music using crotchets and minims, or we might, or even be at that stage yet. This time round, we're going to introduce quavers to it. And you'll need to practice drawing some quavers at that point as well, if you've not done them before. The other sheet I printed out, so the first one I printed, as I explained before, has the cups, little pictures of little cups on it. But that's actually quite difficult to do in a PowerPoint. So I developed it to then having little squares underneath and little circles at the top, so that the children can also then come up with some sort of system, some sort of code for when they want to tap on the table and when they want to tap with their hand as well. Yeah. So that's bringing a whole other line to it as well. And I really did do that because it was quite difficult to put the little cups on each page. Yeah. But I thought, there we go. It's developed itself.
Yeah, that's what notation is, isn't it? You just need to get across what you need to be able to get across. That's kind of the key thing. So tell us a little bit now about your table dancing.
We're just going to call it the tabletop dancing, aren't we?
Why
That's
not?
what they called it.
Yeah.
But I do think it sounds like we're having a good night out, doesn't it? You don't get on the table. So BBC 10 Pieces, I'm a fan. I've been a fan of the regular BBC 10 Pieces. But BBC 10 Pieces at home is really fabulous. And there's 11 or 12 weeks worth of lessons there and videos. And they cover all sorts of how you just do this at home with no instruments. Of course, that had my attention. That's what we need. So the one that really stood out to me was, the composer was Gabriel Prokofiev. That's not the Prokofiev from back in the day. This is a very young and modern one. And he wrote a concerto for turntables. And to be honest, that's about 4 minutes of quite loud music. And by the end of that, I was starting to get a little bit like this with it. But it's got this wonderful video of this concerto, full of scratching and what have you, played by a live orchestra, and then the guy is at the back doing all this turntable scratching with it. Really good video to put on because the children can see an orchestra playing, which is always a good idea. You can pick things out. But also things like the violinists weren't playing with bows, and they weren't plucking like this. They were plucking as if they were playing a guitar. So it's always interesting, and just to see something a little bit different. Great percussion section are all standing back there doing their thing. That's always impressive. That's what I was going to say. So it was nice for the children to watch that as a video, I think. But then they've taken Jordan Douglas, great young man. He's a dancer, and I think it was with Saddle as well, I think they said. And he devised this way of actually making hand gestures on the table to dance with it. So he literally starts doing a square by pushing out like this. I know you can't necessarily see my toes, so I'll do that in the air, but he starts doing a square and then some C shapes, and then he does some W's and some V's with that hand. And he made this 30-second sequence to go along with this piece of music, and it was quite amazing. It really, I really, really enjoyed it. He got my attention. So I've learned that. He has a 6-minute video, great little warm-up he does before he goes into that. So far we've watched the orchestra and we've watched Jordan Douglas doing his dancing. Each of those videos were 12 minutes, followed by, we'd have a little chat about it. So we've easily done 1/4 of an hour. And the reason I'm telling you to watch the videos is because you don't get to do the talking at that point, and we're not meant to be doing the talking, right? So, so I thought, well, there's another thing then. It's letting somebody else do it, because it's one of the things we've been talking about, isn't it? So then I realised that actually all you need to develop this is a piece of music that I would call an angular piece of music, which has got a lot of points in it. One of the first things Western composers I teach is Haydn and Haydn's Great Surprise, which is a beautiful piece of music, kind of sounds like Twinkle Star, very, very gentle. And then the entire orchestra go boom, and then they go back to gentle playing and a boom again. So I was sat at my desk earlier making up a new dance sequence to go with this, and it's what can the children hear? Oh, could some of them would be able to hear the violins? Well, they would have more of a fluttery sound on the table, wouldn't they? Some people might hear the cellos with the big bass line going. So the children then will be able to make up their own sequence to Haydn's Great Surprise. And then by chance, I left my my iPad running, and Funeral March for a Marionette came on, a Charles Gounod piece, which everybody would know if you listen to that. And again, it's a very bouncy piece of music. It was absolutely saying, what can I tap on the table to this? And I could make all kinds of letter shapes on the table, and taps with the other hand and things. So that's my next thing, tabletop dancing with your fingers. You could stand up if you wanted. You don't have to sit at the table for it, but it's another isolated activity to do with a lot of musical structure.
Yeah, and I love that. And you know, just as soon as you start talking about letters and movement and all that sort of stuff, I mean, teachers are going to go, great, okay, because then you're suddenly into that whole kind of English world and you know, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, excellent stuff. And I think I was just thinking there as you were saying, you know, we've done before talking in the group about what we're listening to and all of that sort of stuff. I think actually what we might do is actually each time you start doing another particular thing, maybe we can put something in and just post it in terms of we're doing Haydn creation and we're doing this, and this, and then like I say, we can then talk about it in more detail like we are now. But just that kind of that sort of pinpoint, just so people can start to see what you're doing, how it kind of works, and how you can adapt and use it. That's the thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and realizing here that by the time I've taken, you know, the best part of half an hour to have done my tabletop dancing, I'm just going to keep calling it that, honestly. By the time I've done that, and we've done the rhythm cups work as well, we've easily covered an hour.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't have to go outside, and we didn't have to use the instruments, and we didn't have to sing. You know, if you're able to, I am actually able to sing in the classroom that I'm going into. So, you know, it's a little bit more open there for me. But I'm very aware that at any given time, I could be asked not to sing.
Yeah, and I think that's key, because the government guidelines have been quite clear in recent times in terms of you are allowed to sing, you are allowed to do wind instruments, you are allowed to do brass instruments. Yeah. Take the precautions, you know, distance as much as you can, don't be face-to-face, close proximity, all of that kind of thing, which makes sense. But there are lots of people saying, can I, can't I? And I think a lot of it is about perception. You talked before, we've chatted in the last sort of week or two about the fact that probably not going to be doing recorders because it sounds like people are sharing, it sounds like you're doing stuff which could transmit stuff, you know, whether that's true or not, but there's a perception thing there. And I think, like you said, if people can see and hear the fact that we're doing cups and you've got a child's name on it and they're the only people using it and it's within a bubble and we can clean, all of that sounds, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think one of the things we've probably learnt over this last few weeks and months is that the messaging of what you're trying to do is really important. Don't
Yeah.
say one thing and do another. Don't be vague about what you're doing. I'm doing this like this because I want it to look like this. Is that okay
Yes.
if you're working within a school or a place of like that? And then they say yes or no, and then away you go. Or if you've got the freedom to do it yourself. But rather than that, oh yes, we're not sure about the wind thing, but we're going to be playing recorders, or we're not sure about sharing things, but we're going to be using the same mouthpieces. Not that we would be doing that, but you can see where all that kind of goes, and I think that that's not going to be very helpful for anybody.
Somebody described, she just said to me, it's just bad PR, isn't it? And I was, yeah, that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We'll just avoid for a little while. You know. And what was the other one? The other one I've got is BandLab, which is super. And that's a web-based composition program. And it's free. And again, my head teacher was very keen on this. So the school would need to download it. It's a closed platform, so you set up your class within, and the child's got a login. The login is the same for the whole class, so they log in on the computer on that, and it's so simple. It's really wonderful. I was ever so surprised, and it's basically layering. So you open it up and you say, I'd like a bass line, please, and all the way down that side is like 150 bass lines. Drag and drop, plonk. How long would you like that to go on for, please? Drag it for however long you'd like. Right, we're going to need a bit of middle, we're going to need a bit of top. Select them. There is a keyboard on it. You can play into it. You can, make a complete song if you like. Or if we're working with primary school children, that's probably not what we're going to do. So, so you could choose a genre. There's a scary one with Halloween coming up and what have you. There's, whale music as well as country and western, rock and roll. There's every genre you can think of, and within that they've got samples which you then start layering. And select it all, or you do whatever you like with it. It was very, very simple, but it's free, so that's absolutely wonderful. And most schools now have got enough gear. It used to be, I used to avoid technology in a classroom because I was there to teach music and somebody else was probably there to do IT, and the two didn't really meet.
Yeah.
And if I wanted the iPads or the laptops, well, that meant a class couldn't have them. But you were doing music, so why you don't need those because you're doing music. So can you see how it just like they avoided each other?
Yeah.
Now it seems there's more than one set in a school, isn't there? So
absolutely, and also everything has been technology driven in these last few weeks. People's perception of kind of you can't or you shouldn't or we haven't got access or whatever. Actually, everyone's been online doing everything, so actually that barrier I think is being eroded, and I think our job coming up is that kind of transition period of there's no reason why we can't do this now. We're used to working with computers and it being related to music, and we can't do X, Y, and Z. So let's do A, B, and Z. Whatever. And actually sort of showing that we can do that and have it as an integral part of what's going on.
Yeah, and we could all go back to school. And then we could last a week and we could all get shut back down again, couldn't we? It might not be the whole school, but it could be the particular class that you're teaching. So I'm thinking of one of my schools where I teach 2 classes. So what am I going to do? Am I going to go to a different class in the school that's still there and just give them standalone classes until my class come back again? Or am I going to say, well, we go online now?
Yeah. And
the children have been working online since March. They can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And it's a good point actually, because Emily mentioned in the comments before about the fact that some of her stuff she's going to stay online certainly for this first half a term, just when everything settles down and we get an idea of it. And I think actually that idea of flexibility is really key. I'm very much not going to be saying and now we're back to normal, because there is no normal, and there's this idea of a new normal. We're like I say, that we might get shut down, some might not, we might have different restrictions, all sorts of things could actually happen. So I think just saying we're doing what we're doing in the best way that we can, and having that flexibility, not just because I wrote a lesson plan that says in 4 weeks time we're going to do this, that's what we need to do, or we failed. It's like, no, we're doing this now in a way that we can. And I think anything which sort of works in that framework, or that you can take, is online, which you can have access to elsewhere, or whatever it happens to be, I think it is really key. And I think that regular assessment of kind of, we'll start like this, we'll do it differently, we'll go into school, but we may end up going online, we'll start online, and then we can come in. I know you've talked about having some online and some not, making it work for yourself as well, from a private perspective. So there are so many things you can do.
Yeah. Yes, I was thinking, I know by gauging my parents, some want to stay online. Sometimes that's because, of health reasons, they want to stay online. Others have really enjoyed being online and aren't ready to come back because they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
I have another family who dad brings the son around quite late lesson. Dad works away a lot, which means mum has to bring the little one out to sit outside my house while the son has a lesson. Blah, 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 quite late night in the winter. Blah, blah. Could we stay online for those weeks? Absolutely, you can. So it seems to be making it easier all round. So I've worked it out that by the time I take with people who want to stay online, it is possible for me to give a couple of lessons, maybe one 4:30, one 6:30, which is why I bought the screens, in my house, and we could rotate that the next week. They could go online the next week, somebody else can come in, and I think that's a way of doing it.
Yeah.
A bit of a rotation.
Yeah, I like that. I think the flexibility is really good and really key.
But having said that, back in July, I did declare to everybody I was staying online in September, and we would work it out again in October, because every time I tried to work out how to shield in the room, how to work it all out, who to go on, it just made my head hurt. And I thought, if this is this confusing, we shouldn't be doing it. So I stopped and just said no. And I did have a few parents starting to say, they were just testing the water. Were you thinking of being online in September or what, or not, or what? And I just said, I'm just going to make a decision. And I just declared to everybody, nope, September will be online. Expect that.
Yeah.
Now we're nearer to September. Yeah, I'm tweaking on it a little bit, but it doesn't hurt my head anymore to consider these things.
Yeah, and
it was just.
and I think it is also that sense that what's happening is the fact that everyone doesn't know what September will be like when you're actually going to be doing it, because I've just started now. Katie, my daughter, started to get back into her gymnastics, tumbling and all that kind of thing, and just the effort is not the right word to use, but the suddenly having to be driving around and being at a certain place at a certain time, which we've not had for months. We've just been in our own time scale doing what we like. All of a sudden it's like 2 or 3 evenings a week my time isn't my own anymore, and the amount of time that takes, and they suddenly change their times to fit in with everything they had to do from a safeguarding point of view. And so we can put all these plans in place now, but actually the reality is it's probably going to look different even a few days or weeks into where we start, and again as well. And I think that's really, really key.
Yeah. And so yes, I do agree with Emily that way. She says just leave it online for a bit. Yeah, if you're not sure, just stay online, and then you've made the decision, and you're not messing people around. Because if you are having a phone call where you're dithering, no, just make a decision.
Yeah.
So you're staying online.
Yeah. I think that's it. So I think Paul's here watching as well. How are you, Paul? Thanks for joining us. He's just said thanks very much for the tip about the screens, and he's got a couple for his teaching as well, which is fantastic. Paul, just do let us know, how's it been for you? For those of you who don't know, Paul is a guitar, ukulele professional player and teacher. So it really is interesting to hear different people's sort of points of view and exactly how it's been working. And I know your new ukulele sessions that you're doing have been really successful as well. So was that part of your natural adaptation, or was it something you're planning on as well? Just give us a couple of things in the comments, and we can sort of share that as well, which will be fantastic. So, Carol, in terms of where we're going to head for the rest of the rest of this sort of academic year. How's life looking for you in terms of what your reality is now? Have you got as much teaching, less teaching, different type of teaching? How do you sort of see it panning out from your perspective?
The only thing I haven't got is any ensemble work. I've got all my classroom work is back, all my instrumentals. My instrumentalists, I have to say, the families were fantastic. And I had very few people saying, we're not going online or we're done or anything. They really did just get behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, so I didn't really lose very many at all. So that's all going ahead. Yeah, I have 6 ensembles a week and I'm not doing anything with that. It concerns me a little bit. It concerns me quite a lot, actually. I am concerned by this. I'm concerned for the children that won't have had a instrumental lesson for the best part of a year. And so it'll be watch this space as to what are we going to do there then. It's one thing if you've got an orchestra full of newbies who've never done it before. This lot they're trained, but they're going to be really rusty, aren't they?
Yeah.
When they do get back. So it's going to be, we're not going back to hot cross buns because they're not going to buy that one little bit. They've been playing James Bond. So, so finding, I think, the happy medium there is going to take quite a lot of work. But I'm almost relieved that I don't have to be planning for that at the minute. And again, it's all to do with this, just taking it as it comes. We've had to get our head around the instrumental work. Now it's our head around the classroom work. Our head will get around the ensemble work when it's time to do that. And I'm hoping we get the same amount of take up at school as well as we normally get. Because if we miss this September, new children, I don't know what's going to happen there, but it'll all come back eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's also going to be different because one of the realities, of course, is the fact that from one perspective, it's kind of we're gonna close shop a little bit. Maybe financially, people don't want to pay for lessons. Maybe they don't want to be mixing as much. So the less stuff you do, the less of that's going on. So therefore, you think, maybe that's going to be a little bit less. And then there's part of me, certainly our kids, it's that kind of, they're just desperate to get out and do stuff. They want to be out and socializing, albeit safely, and all that is a given. They want to be out doing it. And so, I wonder whether the uptake for people wanting to have lessons and to get back to doing things and progressing, especially after so much time out, is going to be really, 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 really key. So I wonder whether one will sort of cancel out the other as it goes through.
Yeah, and it's down to us, isn't it, to tell them that it's fantastic and show them that it's fantastic, and and they want to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
But I do think that my ensembles are going to look different.
Yeah. Fab.
They won't be the same,
Yeah, it's going to be changed like that. So Paul's got back in touch on the comments, and he said it's been interesting. He said, to be honest, I almost feel guilty as COVID has opened lots of doors for me. I don't feel guilty. I love the fact that people are adapting and doing whatever they've done. He said he's picked up lots of foreign students over Zoom that wouldn't have ever had the chance had he not gone into Zoom teaching. Well, absolutely fantastic. And I know some people have really sort of taken that on board in terms of the whole being available to everybody. And if you don't mind doing it and you kind of, it works for you in such a way, I think it's something I'd like to be able to do. I just found personally it was difficult from a drum point of view because I think it was the impact that the drum has on the sound, and so it very much used to cut out a lot, and of course it's very much then depending on the quality of the mic and the setup the other end, and so it really was quite different depending on people's sort of situation. So I could see myself doing it more in some respects, but at the same time you'd need to make sure that the person that was at the other end, actually, if they were going to do it long term like that they were sort of geared up. So I've got my drum kit, and actually I do also have my setup really set up properly, so to speak. And actually one thing I just wanted to mention there before is the fact that we spoke a day or so ago about the fact there's people doing sort of proper setups for online teaching, and I've actually seen today that it's going to be a new thing on Zoom.
Oh, good.
So not just original sound and those settings there, one of them will be like music teaching version.
Excellent.
And of course, the thing I did see did have a caveat as well, that it does involve you having a decent mic and you do having a decent camera and all of that as well, which is always going to be the case. Like we said, needs to be both ends for that to work. But I think what they're doing is, because of speeds and various things like that, it's going to mean that actually, if everyone's set up properly, it's going to work really well, which is fantastic. Paul's also asked, he said, have any of us had any students do an online exam? He says he's had his first one today. Carol, have you got any experience with that? I don't.
Emily has. Yes, no. I had a grade 6 and 2 grade 8s who were ready for it. So the story in a nutshell is, if you recorded yourself for both Trinity or ABRSM, sorry, forget ABRSM on that one, for Trinity, if you recorded yourself for Trinity, you didn't have to do any scales or any of the additional tests. You could just play your 3 pieces. And for a woodwind player, you also didn't have to be accompanied by a piano player. Or you could play along to a backing track. So because these are really big grades, and they're all A-level students as well, going into their second year, we just put it out there. Do you fancy it then? Have a crack at that. And they didn't. They worked really hard, but they just couldn't get from and they're not supposed to take their exams until at least November, though, so it was ahead of the game. They just couldn't get all 3 pieces absolutely tip-top without a piano as well, so any blemishes were showing, and they weren't happy about it, and so I didn't. So we did train for it, but we didn't actually do it. And I know ABRSM have got a new online platform as well, which starts in the autumn, and I do have people ready for that, but we haven't done it yet.
Okay, great.
But I know Emily did. She had a little boy who did ever so well on his ukulele. So yeah,
Emily's just mentioned, she said, can you talk about the findings of the different systems you were looking to, like Zoom but no delay? And she can't remember what it was, but I can't remember what you said that was, but as I just mentioned before, that Zoom does seem to be having this in, if that makes any difference.
The one that my pals are trying out at the minute is Rock Out Loud Live. Rock Out Loud Live.
Cool.
If you Google that, you'll see it. And the guy who does it gives you tutorials. You book an appointment with him and he shows you how to do it. It's great.
Fantastic.
And people are enjoying it. And I believe the version that has 0 delay is the paid version, and it's sort of like the same sort of Zoom payment. It's not extortionate, £10 a month type thing to get that version of it. I've not used it yet.
And Paul, do tell us how your online experience was, or for your pupil, if you've actually heard today, in terms of actually someone who's actually taking it. And both Emily and Paul have both said the fact that actually it's interesting that the sort of theory is no longer a dirty word, which is because it's things that people have been able to do easier online, in terms of being able to the back and forth, and lots of the apps and games that I know we talked about when Emily was online with us during lockdown as well, in terms of things that you can do to break the lessons up in a different way, which is going to be harder now you're back in school. But this is this kind of thing I like about the idea of the whole system morphing a little bit. If you're in a position where the children are allowed to have a device, or that becomes part and parcel of how it is. It might not be because of safeguarding in every situation, but I know there are some schools where every child has access to that, or there's a computer in the room or whatever, and to be able to start to bring that into, this is going to be part of how it's going to be. I need a music stand, I need a pencil, I need an instrument, I need access to a technology that's going to allow me to do what I do, and I think that's going to be really interesting. And Emily said that's the one. Any news? So if you actually started with the with that on the, I can't remember the name of it now, having said the Zoom alternative, or was it just something you were looking into?
Rock out loud, live. Rock out loud, live. That's roll, isn't it? There you go. You can remember
roll.
It now. Like roll, yeah. No, I haven't used it yet because I haven't had time, because I've been too busy dancing on a table and tapping a cup and making that work.
Yeah.
But so no, I haven't actually got around to that yet, and I was kind of ear to the ground because I've got quite a few other people trying it out.
Yeah.
And Yeah, but I also had a feeling. So I was pleased what you said about Zoom, because I had a feeling that Zoom won't be far behind.
Yeah. I mean,
And this is,
it made sense, and they've already got the people signed up. That's the thing as well, isn't it? So, and Paul's just mentioned that the people doing his exam was a grade 4 for the VCM,
right.
and I think I think it's true. He says it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it does work for. It seems to work for children quite well, and I think that's true. I think there's
Right.
something about the performing, recording, doing it, or it just being in something which they can adapt to much easier. Which I don't know. I just think there's going to be a variety of options these days,
Yeah.
and it does seem to me that all the exam boards that they want to do something so that people can do an exam in something. And it used to be there was like a gold standard of it had to look like this, and this, which worked incredibly well if you were learning and then you wanted to do this and maybe go to music college or to study this, and it really took you through that whole system. And I think that will always be there for the time being. But
Yeah.
we know with the breadth of what people do and children do in their lives these days, there's also very much a sense of actually what we just want to do is a bit of this or a bit of that, or we want to sort of expand into being examined or be part of it in a different type of way. And I think that's what more people are doing and what more people are looking
Yeah.
for these days. And I think that's organic. I think because Trinity certainly went down that route, even from a drum perspective. From it all being classical to suddenly being very rock and pop, and the chance to move into different and all of that, and it just opened up that kind of it can be different, and we can adapt and do it differently if need be.
Well, I think it's also quite good for some of my students that I had some students take their exam at Easter, but some were cancelled because we were right on that cusp of it. So obviously we had no Easter ones, no summer ones. I'm not happy about putting them in for an autumn one if they've not had any face-to-face time with me yet. And so there's been a number of families that I've had to say, and I do put in at least 20 exams a year, so there's quite a few there. And I have had to say to some of my family, it's okay to just move on. You don't have to take the exam. It doesn't make you a worse player to not have that certificate. Let's move on with the learning. Exams are just a small part of learning a musical instrument. And we'll pick up the next exam when we're ready. And that was a surprise to some parents who are quite exam driven, who had to say, oh yeah, we don't want to hang around, do we? By the time they actually get around to taking last year's exam, could be next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not waiting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had one pupil who was definitely ready to do, because I started a new school in January. So when I got there, he was almost ready to do his exam at the end of that term, and probably could have done, but there were just a few things that I thought we could do to really take him massively to the next level. He had all the ability in the world to do that. So we said, okay, let's just do a few different things. Let's try a few things around, keep it going, add that, but then maybe do it in the summer so that you're absolutely raring to go. And we started working on it just to see how it was going to work out, and it was working brilliantly. And then of course he couldn't do it in the summer. But we've then spent the summer doing some different stuff, sort of the breadth rather than the sort of the grade syllabus kind of thing. And he's just thrived. It's been absolutely fantastic. But he still then wants to do the exam in the autumn if we can get back in and do a live exam and do it that way. And I thought actually we didn't really do much of the exam stuff over the summer, but just at the end I said, let's just run it through, let's just see. And even without having done it, he played it 20% better than he did when I last heard it back in March, just because he's a better player. And I said, great, because what we can do is we can make sure that if we can get back and do a proper exam in the autumn, we can do other things around that as well. He's not getting bored and it's not doing whatever, and it just gives you that benchmark. And he's up doing grade 5, 6, so it's not like he's waiting to do the next thing. We're able to broaden it out and do whatever. And Paul's mentioned how's the online drum teaching going, and Paul, it really was a sense. I did mention it a little bit before in terms of a lot of it is exactly that. It's how the student setup is from a mic point of view, and it makes it very, very different. And it really is a sense of. It worked well for me because I had an electric kit. I've got a good microphone. I had it through a good set of speakers, and really, 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 really seemed to work well. It seemed to come across really well from the people that were on the other end of the screen. From my point of view, they were using an iPad or a mic or an old laptop without any external microphones and that kind of thing. So the Zoom would pick it up really well when I'm just having a conversation, and then they'd start playing, and after about 3 or 4 notes it would just completely get all the sound down and disappear. So I got very good at seeing what was going on, and you could hear the thud in delay without hearing the acoustic sound properly, but I could still tell what they were doing and how it was actually working and how it was actually going around. So it was okay, but it was different. And but I think if I was going to be doing it full time, and especially as they got into bigger grades, I'd think having a setup, finding a setup which you could say, if you're going to have lessons, right, let's see how it goes. Here's the instrument that you need. Here's the setup that you need. And it doesn't have to be lots of money, but I think just that kind of this type of camera or this type of microphone or this particular webcam, and it will work much better. And I think I would have that as part of my thing if I was going to be doing it more often in a way that it was going.
And that's the thing, isn't it? This was forced upon us.
Yes.
So we just had to make do.
Yeah.
Didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Paul, thank you very much. You said great show for us, for both of us, and addressing all the things that peripatetic teachers are worried about, and I think that's true. That is the thing. You know, we're primary music on fire, but you know we are peripatetics and things as well. You know, and we're here for everybody in the group. So whatever your setup, then you know that's what we're here to be able to sort of share our experiences and.
We're human.
Yeah, exactly, and I love the backwards and forwards. That's the most important thing, you know, to be able to share everyone's experiences is where you get the real benefit of all these things. Is it actually goes through, which is great. Mm-hmm. So, anything else we want to cover before we finish off? As usual, our quick little Q&A conversation has lasted an hour. Which isn't that long, bearing in mind how long Carol and I often talk when we're just catching up. But anything else you want to finish off with before we say goodbye, or anything anyone watching wants to ask?
I'm done. I have explained about rhythm cups. I've explained about tabletop dancing. I didn't show you this. This is a lovely book. This is by Samantha Coates, and she does a series of books called Blitz, and this is how to blitz beginner theory. And I like the beginner one because in here she's got all kinds of games of bingo and crosswords and things like that. So again, if you're looking for little fillers, this is a cracking book. Musical maths page. And what have you. So really, really quick little fillers if you just want that kind of thing. If you go into grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, it's going to go way, way over your head. But This is basically musicianship, a little bit of reading music, a rhythm note bingo. Oh, it's fabulous. So each one of those is a game. So we've got rhythms in here, and you shake the dice and you cross off however many beats. As you roll the dice and you cross off how many beats. So if you roll a 4, then you will maybe able to take 2 minims away on your bingo. And it's another lovely little game. If you need something else, if you need a filler, or it's raining, or you can't sing, or you can't, all those things we've covered again.
Absolutely. So. Could you take a picture of that and stick it in the group? At some stage, maybe the best thing to do is to stick it. Just put it in the group just so that we can see, because sometimes it's easier to see what those things are as well. Paul's just asked, will the show be available to share, as I think many teachers would really benefit from listening to it? Well, that's a very good question. Normally these recordings just go for the people who are members. We are actually doing a live video for people on the Education on Fire page on Friday, which is for people who are outside the membership. But what do you think, Cal? Is it something we want to share outside the group as well?
I think we could share it.
So what I'll do is I'll download it, and normally what I do is I put it in through Vimeo and then add it to the membership site, which I will do anyway to make sure that people who aren't on the Facebook, because there are people who are members who aren't within the Facebook group who still get access to all those things. But what I'll do is I'll make that video not private, and I can then share the Vimeo thing. Or I'll tell you the other thing I'll do, Paul, which might make things much easier, is I'll actually put the Vimeo or the link onto onto a blog post on the website, and then that way you can just direct people straight onto there. That's probably the best way of doing it, and then people can find it that way and use that as well. So yes, I think that'll be good. Fab. Right, I think we're done. If there's anything else you want to ask or anything else you want to cover, one of the things we said before, let's if there's anything you want, just do ask in the Facebook group. We're always in there. We're able to do whatever it is that supports you and how you want to do it, and we will then make sure that we can cover what we can. And I think, like we said, if we actually will be in there more often, I think, just saying what we're physically using day in, day out, maybe the music we're listening to, maybe the things that we're covering. And I think as we go through doing our lives, maybe we'll systematically go through and talk a little bit about each of those things. And I'll send out direct links within the membership. So yes, you could go into the membership and talk about the composition side or the recorders or the boomwangers, but I'll make sure that I actually go in and give some links to those things as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to do more in-depth demonstrations of tabletop dancing and rhythm covers. If it doesn't make sense, me rambling on a video like this is very different to sitting and going, actually, let's just do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll see. Yes, we'll see how the video goes with the teenager in your house, and see if that works and is really easy to demonstrate. And then, like I say, if not, all we need to do is, like I say, we can do a live version, or we can do whatever, especially if we're in a position to do that at some point going forward. Fab. Well, Carol, thank you so much for spending this last hour. Emily and Paul, thank you so much for being here live. It's really great, and I'm glad we can interact in this way as it goes through. That's what this is all about. So I really appreciate you being here and spending some time. I'm glad you think it's been of use. And as we said, we're here for you. So this membership looks however it needs to look for those people that are part of it. So that's the most important thing, I think. So yeah, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back again live in September. And if there's anything you need in the meantime, just drop us a note inside the Facebook group.